Good morning, science class. Today I'm going to be helping you create your Science 14 Chapter 6 study sheet. So today we need to focus in on Chapter 6. So first things first, we're going to get to our textbooks because, well, we need to go through our textbooks to not only help us kind of learn some of the background material, but to help us with the assignments and the quiz that's coming up on Friday. That's tomorrow, March 27th. So, first things first, how do we get to our textbook? Well, open up a web browser. I choose Chrome. And right at the very top, search up Science 14 textbook. You'll see right here, I've already Google searched it, so I have it in my search history. And it comes up with this school. Up in Edmonton, they've already posted it. I'm hoping to post a copy online to D2L to make it even easier to access, but I'm just waiting on confirmation of our licensing. So I click on the link, and it opens up right to every chapter broken down. And so we see Chapter 6 right here. Let's open it up. And you'll see I've already opened it a couple times. I've been practicing and I've been going through it, so it opens pretty fast. You might have to wait a little bit, or as you start scrolling through, you might have to wait for it to completely load. Now, first things first, I want to jump right to the bottom of the PDF file. I go right to the very bottom. Like I said, sometimes it takes a little bit to load, and I don't want the last page. I want the second last page. And here we're going to focus in first on the key terms. Right here. We don't have very many this time, but each one has a big idea that we do need to study with it. Okay, and so I'm just going to do a couple examples, and then I'll leave it up to you guys creating your own examples. So once you have your textbook, leave the textbook open because everyone here should have a piece of paper beside them, and that's what I'm using here. Your piece of paper beside your computer or your work desk is going to be very helpful. This way, you can keep that study sheet with you, and when you're writing your quiz, you don't have to be flipping back and forth, and it helps to actually write down things to remember things. So I'm going to do it on a computer, and that way you guys can see it and see what I'm kind of typing out and how to organize it. But here, perfect. I got my key terms. Now, I want to make sure when I have it, I'm going to make it bold and underlined, and I want to draw attention to here are my key terms. My first one was absorption. Perfect. My second one was specific heat capacity. Now remember, you can write them all out, but I'm gonna leave them right here, but I'm on a computer, so as I keep writing, it will space it out for me. If you're handwriting them all out, you might wanna leave some space or maybe do it one at a time. Now that I have my study sheet started to outline, I need to actually find my definitions. So I flip back to my web page, and first things people are going to do is they're going to look up heat absorption, and they're going to okay, heat absorption. And they type it in, heat absorption. We wait a bit and we see a lot of these graphs, and in thermodynamics, internal energy, also called, we've talked a little bit about thermal energy, but we're not talking about microscopic forms of energy. We are not going this deep into things. So this doesn't help us. And talking about nuclear power, way too much information, right? We need to use our textbook to help. And this is where we scroll all the way back up to the top. There we go. And now I'm going to start scrolling through and reading through everything as I go through. And I'm reading through, and I'm looking for my key term. So these first two pages are the title pages. Okay. And then now we're actually into our notes, absorbing and losing heat. And right away we see this right here. Here's my bolded word, heat absorption. So that means my definition is right nearby. So what I need to do is now look for a simple definition that I can actually put into my study sheet. So let's back up a sentence. It's at the back end. Okay, let's go. The following activities investigate how... Oh, there we go. The following activities will investigate. Oh, okay, that's fine. Don't need to add that to my study sheet, but here's the important part. How different materials will actually absorb heat at different rates. Okay, there's my important part. How different materials absorb heat at different rates. And that's what I'm going to put. How different materials absorb heat at different rates. That's my perfect, simple definition for absorption. And now I can go on to specific heat capacity. And as I scroll through, oh, here's a lab that we are not able to do. If you want to, you could try it at home. If you have some of these materials, you might be able to use a glass, or if you have a measuring cup, you might be able to do it, but maybe you don't have all these different materials, so you can't really do it. Some of them you might be able to actually do at home. So as I scroll through, oh, I see another bolded word, my specific heat capacity. Perfect. And now I can actually get my definition from here. And I'm going to look and I'm going to read through where is my key term that I want. And so I'll clear my other ones. Specific heat capacity measures a substance's ability to absorb or lose heat. Oh, perfect. We should have had this from our notes already because we did talk about it in class, but there's your simple definition. Measures a substance's ability to absorb or lose heat. And then I would put it in here. Measures, and I would go on and on. Absorb heat. Absorb or lose heat. There we go. And now I have my definition. As you guys are working through it, do all these same things. It'll take more time to practice through it. If you want to, you can actually make sure to highlight how, okay, it's measured in these different units. Okay, and we can write down these units if we want to get familiar of it. If we wanted to write down these examples that we see here, we can write down these examples. Just choose one that really helps explain it for you. Now, I'm going to jump ahead. Let's say we have all of our definitions done and we've gone through and we've read through it and we've practiced and oh, I got my installation, I got my R value definition. Okay. Now I want to back right up to specific heat capacity because now I want to take some time and you should actually go through and read through some of the details and you might be looking for other information to include. Here we see a table. That's the first kind of jump of, oh, do I want to include a table of information? Well, if you want to, you can. However, you won't need to because on a quiz, I will include all these terms and I will include these values that you see right here. I have to include them because not everyone will memorize them. Not everyone will have a study sheet. They will always be included on a quiz. So don't worry about including it. The thing to include, though, would be something like these practice questions. And you could write one out and you could figure out how you need to answer it or figure out how you actually apply specific heat capacity if you wanted to actually practice with it. This would be perfect to go through and write down one of these questions. And so we could even think through a beaker with 250 mils and a beaker with 500 mils is heated from 10 degrees to 20 degrees. Which one requires more energy? Well, beaker B, because there's more water and it could be whatever the heat source is, it doesn't matter. It has more water, so it will require more energy. They're both heating to the same degree. So you could write down the explanation, write down your thought process to help you if you have a question like that on a quiz. Jumping to R value, here you see an example, and I wanted to highlight this one as well. You see this example? This would be something perfect to copy into your notes as well. How to actually solve R-value questions. And so I'm not going to go over and give a tutorial about what R-value is. That's all in the notes. And as you read through and study, I'm just highlighting things that you should or probably could include on a study sheet. So that would be a very good one right there. Now, as we keep rolling through, it helps to read through these examples sometimes. However, it's not always possible because we're not actually doing these experiments. Other good things, though, as we go past the experiments, is finding these key images, and this is where it's going to get interesting. We're going to actually look at examples. And so this is an example of how we control heat loss. And that's all chapter 6 is how do we control heat and how do we control this heat transfer. So this example is in our house. Our big part of this chapter is, okay, we know the terms, but then what do we know for practical examples? You copy down this one and you maybe put some keywords that you want to choose. I'm going to pull up one more example because I'm going to highlight it as I scroll through them. Windows and doors that keep heat in. So we just talked about wall spaces and wall cavities, and I talked about windows in class. Okay. I talked about a pizza delivery bag. I talked about vacuum bottles, which would be two very good images to draw roughly into your notes and give an image like this to talk about, okay, how do we stop these things? I talked about them in class, but maybe have this image in there because, well, even one of our bolded words is right here, a vacuum bottle, right? So make sure to really copy down this idea of how it works. And then as we're going, how does it work in a kitchen or a workshop? How does it keep us warm? Okay, these are all going to be practical questions. The people of the north, how does it keep them warm? We see how do we keep cool, because that's also controlling heat transfer. How does long robes actually keep us cool? Copy down the big ideas from them. You can see down here, immense heat. How do firefighters protect themselves from the heat? How do scuba divers protect themselves from the cold? Okay. When we're going through these practical examples, I'm going to highlight this one. Okay. You're going to read through it. And why would they wear so many clothes in hot places? Well, as I read through the first two lines, long, thick robes protect bodies from the sun's rays. Oh, light-colored clothes reflect heat from the environment, allowing the body heat to escape. So there, I don't need to write it all, but I highlighted and I drew my attention to the key terms. This would be a perfect example. How to keep cool, wear long clothes, light-colored long clothes to protect and reflect the sun's heat because it's going to be so hot. Those are some of those big ideas that you would want to include in a study sheet. And you could do that for each one of those examples, whether it is the firefighter, the scuba diver, or as I go back up, how do the Inuit keep warm in the middle of winter? You could do the same thing and find the clues there. Now that you've gone through, you've written down some practical examples as of each one and how do they keep themselves cool, you should be able to, check your study sheet and can you actually answer some of these questions by just using your study sheet? And you can go through and figure out how to calculate different specific heat capacities. You'll be able to apply knowledge. There's two different objects heated from the same length of time over a Bunsen burners. Okay, you should be able to explain them. And then you should be able to even use some critical thinking about different questions on here. Okay, research some of these protective clothing. How do these people wear protective clothing? Okay, fruits and vegetable growers will protect crops by spraying them with water or covering them with blankets. I'm going to have similar questions. I'm not going to ask exact same questions, but I'm going to ask questions how to apply this controlling heat transfer questions. Okay. If you should be able to answer them, you should have no problem answering these types of questions come quiz time. So please, if you have any questions about writing the quiz tomorrow or making a study sheet, don't forget to email me or contact me through D2L. That's always the easiest way. And have a great day, everyone.